رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm honored again. I have the privilege of being with you again, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a blessed gathering, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for all of our sins and help us to be among His servants, His good servants. Now, I have chosen for today as a topic something related to what's happening in the world around us. Because Islam is not a religion which makes us isolated from the events which are happening around us. We should be involved in everyday actions, in everyday events, not just as spectators and not just as, people who are watching the events, but as people who can try to change, people who can try to present solutions for the world's problems. So this is the role of the Muslims. And unfortunately, we feel really sad that the world is undergoing such a huge financial crisis, and the Muslims cannot stretch the helping hand over there. They cannot have these life-saving boats when the ship is sinking. Now the ship of capitalism is sinking. But are the Muslims having, these lifeboats to rescue people, tell them, come on, join us? Or are they also sinking with them, like this big Titanic of capitalism? And this is really bad. I mean, we cannot just stand out there and say, well, Islam is the solution and we have the solution, because we are not applying it and practicing it the way we should. Now, I don't want to promote pessimism, but I want just to give some hope, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us not to be pessimistic people and negative people. We should be people who will be presenting hope. We should have hope, we should have optimism, and we should be working accordingly. Not just sitting around and waiting till things would change. We should be introducing some change. Now, the big financial crisis, in a simplified manner, because this was based on a lecture that I gave, of course, with the big help of financial advisor, so to say, Mr. Gary Busby, whose name is now Sulaiman. He became Muslim about 10 years ago. Alhamdulillah, we gave it at the Jumeirah Islamic Learning Center. Of course, most of the words or the knowledge are based on his efforts, because I'm personally not a financial expert, although I have some knowledge about these fields related to finance, to mortgage, to the stock market. But he's more of an expert, so of course I sought his help, and mashallah, he was very helpful. Now, as I was looking through the hadith about riba, because of course we wanted to present some verses from the Quran, along with some sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I saw a hadith that I have never seen before. Of course, there's about 1,000 hadith, meaning 1 million. At least these were the ones gathered by Imam Ahmad. There's a hadith narrated by Ibn Majah and Imam Ahmad رحمهم الله عن ابن مسعود عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما أحد أكثر من الربا إلا كان عاقبة أمره إلى قلة. ما أحد أكثر من الربا إلا كان عاقبة أمره إلى قلة. I'll translate. Ibn Mas'ud related that the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, no one can devour much usury except that his consequences, or he will end up in poverty. So try to imagine that. If you keep on devouring or dealing with usury, with what they call interest, you see, on and on and on, you will end up in poverty. Now, this hadith clearly predicts the crisis that we are living today. These huge banks, like Lehman Brothers and others, have been lending money, and going through this mortgage system. And, they have been giving toxic debts. Toxic debts are debts or loans, toxic loans. Loans that are given to people who cannot pay back. But what would they do? All right, take this loan, if you cannot pay it back, we will take your house, we will take your properties, we will take your land, we will take your car, we can put you in jail. And people out of desperation, they say, okay, anything, but I need this money. So they will have interest and compound interest, which will be increasing, and then they will end up by saying, well, we cannot pay. Do whatever you want. And some people actually committed suicide. During Ramadan, I was on this radio show, and I don't know if some of you heard it, Nightline with James Fikoway. On one of the evenings of Ramadan, it was the last Tuesday in Ramadan. He was talking about people who committed suicide in the UAE just because they couldn't pay their debts. A man, his wife, and their newborn jumped into Dubai Creek just because they couldn't pay their loans back. People who suicide, people who, killing themselves because they cannot pay back. All because of the evil greed of some people who want to take interest or take usury, take riba. Usually the person who wants to take a loan is a person in need. And the person who can lend money is a person who is satisfied. He has extra money. So if you have extra money, why would you overcharge someone who is poor and in need instead of giving him the money, if you can, as charity or as a loan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls qard hasan. You see, a good loan, a beautiful loan, in which you can wait, you can give him time, give him respite. If he cannot pay this month, okay, let's say you can pay it next month. Because this is extra money that you can live without, instead of just accumulating them in your bank account. So this is just part of the story. And the story went beyond that. So this hadith, as we said, clearly predicts the economic crisis, and that people, if they deal with usury, devour much usury, they will end up in poverty. Subhanallah. Now, as I said, this hadith was narrated by Ibn Majah and Imam Ahmad in his Muslim. Now, there are some definitions we have to go through, of course. I've learned some of them are pretty obvious. What is money? Money is anything that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services and repayment of debts. The main uses of money are as medium of exchange, a unit of account, and store of value. What is mortgage? These are terms that we are listening to every day in the news. Mortgage is from the French word mort. More, M-O-R-T, means debt. Alright? So, it means a debt that you have until your death. So maybe you die and you didn't pay your debt yet. Mortgage. Imagine this terrible, horrible word. You see? Mortgage. So imagine, it's a loan secured on your home so that it belongs to the bank. Your home belongs to the bank until you pay all of your payments that are imaginary. I mean, it's completely unfathomable, these great numbers that they have to pay back. Now, riba, it's an Arabic word, obviously. We see it in the Quran frequently, especially in the verses in Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al-Rum, and many other surahs. Riba in Arabic means growth. But this kind of growth is like brain tumor. The brain tumor grows, right? So riba is growth as in brain tumor. A cancerous growth, a growth that is not good, that is harmful, that is destructive to the existence of the human being. Now this term is commonly taken to equate the interest on a financial debt, which is strictly prohibited in Islam. Stocks and shares, the units by which parts of a company are owned and traded. Alright? Essentially halal in their simple equity form. So if they are, equity, part of the shares in the company, they are acceptable if it's like that. You see, usually when corporations, this is how it started, corporations wanted to expand their business. So how can they get the capital? They will get their capital by putting their stocks in the stock market, and people will be buying these stocks, and then they will be getting some profits. Let's say, for example, you bought 5 stocks for 500 dirhams, and then let's say this company made 25% profit during that year. You will be getting shares and dividends from these profits just by sitting down, putting these stocks in the stock market. Maybe if you are observing them on the internet or following the news. Excuse me. And then you'll be getting your shares. Now, of course, it's a debatable issue, although what we hear frequently is that stocks are okay as long as you are investing in a company that does not deal with alcohol, does not deal with prohibited items or arms or etc., something like that. Now, what is subprime? This is a new term. It didn't exist in the financial world before. We always hear about this subprime. What is subprime? It describes poor risk quality mortgage that originated in the United States. Now, in the United States, I don't know if any one of you has a Hotmail, account. What is the most advertisement you see on the top? Mortgage, low mortgage rates. They put for you, for example, which state are you staying? You see, and you see some ducks dancing and some pictures and images to attract people. You see very low mortgage rates. You see pay up your debts, etc. So these are institutions that are based on playing with people who are indebted under subhanallah, under this huge burden of debts. Also the fiat currency. The fiat currency, usually if we know, of course we know about the past, money was mainly gold or silver coins, or any valuable metal, or subhanallah, that was available at that time. At a certain period of time in Europe, the money became, these banknotes that we know today. It's any money whose value is determined by legal means. So the national bank or the central bank will issue banknotes, and it's written on them 10 dirhams or 10 Sri Lankan rupees or any kind of currency, $1, and then here you go. This is the paper, and the value or the backup of the value of this paper is $1, 10 dirhams, 100 dirhams, etc. So, excuse me. So it's the government that decides the value of this paper. Instead of having this gold coins and these silver coins in your pockets, which are a bit heavy, then here you go. These are the banknotes. But usually, and primarily, these banknotes were backed up by what? By gold. And it was supposed to be backed up by gold until the mid-20th century, when there was no such thing as gold backup. And mainly in the 70s, you see, there was no such thing. Now the dollars, the American dollars, they are not backed up by gold at all. You see, Fort Knox does not have enough gold to back up all the US dollars. So it just became a de facto currency. So all the currencies now, or most of the currencies around the world, became connected with the superior currency, which is the dollar bill. Alright, so it was the main currency. Instead of the gold, now you have the backup, or the value of your money is equivalent, or how much it would be equivalent to the US dollars. So this is what's called the fiat. Fiat means decision, or governmental decision. You see, again, it's a money whose value is determined by legal means, rather than the strict availability of goods and services which are named on the representative notes. So the note is just just the government that decides the value of the note, rather than the goods and services that the government is selling, or the certain country is selling. So it's not demand and supply anymore. It's just, a claim by the government that here you go, this is the bill, and it is equivalent to such and such currency. And of course, the main currency is the dollar. Now we have to note something, that in our age, bad things have been given good names. Awful things have been given these beautiful names to make them seem to be attractive, right? What do they call intoxicants? Do you hear this word intoxicants anymore? No, you hear spirits. You see, you care for a glass of spirits. Alright, they call them these new good names. Smirnoff, whatever, vodka, or this and this. Just taste the change, or keep on walking. I don't know what, Johnny or whatever, Walker. You see? So imagine, so yes, they are giving bad things good names. For example, illegal sexual relations. Now they are under law, and swinging, and all these things. You see, most of the movies, I don't know if you have still watched, I don't recommend that you watch movies, but even in some Arab movies, which is really bad, because I grew up in an environment people were watching Arab movies. I used to see that the initial relationship between the husband and the wife is completely corrupt. So the wife would meet that young man and start going out with him and start having a relationship with him, and they play this beautiful romantic music whenever they meet. But whenever the house, in the house, or whenever the husband and the wife would meet, all this horrible music and all this, subhanAllah, so they are beautifying haram. They want haram to look beautiful. And this is what shaitan wants you to see. Shaitan wants you to see haram as beautiful. Shaitan wants you to see that lady down the corner, subhanAllah, who is doing shameful activities, as a beautiful human being. And he wants you to see that decent woman wearing hijab, covering all of her body, covering her head, covering her, her body, and her beauty, acting with modesty, as something backwards, as something that reminds you of your grandma, but not as a woman that you would respect and admire and see as a respectable human being. And, on and on and on. So all these bad things have been given good names. And one of these bad things that have been given good names is riba. What is riba in Arabic? Fa'ida. Fa'ida means that which is beneficial. Imagine instead of riba, a term which is completely loathed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detests and loathes the riba. وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. And will make your, sadaqah, your, subhanAllah, your charity grow even more. So riba is low, is detested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and charity will make you grow. SubhanAllah, with hasanat. Your money will grow. Subhanallah, if you tried it, when you give charity, you feel that there's more blessing in your money, no matter how little it is. If you didn't give charity enough charity, you see that there's so much constraint in your financial expenditures. There's something wrong here. So the more the charity, the more the blessing. And even if you don't get the immediate blessing or the immediate increase, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep away from you the harms of this dunya and of akhirah. Maybe, let's say, for example, you paid charity but you didn't have enough money and you are short on money, but it might be that an accident was coming a few days ago and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved you from that accident. He kept that accident away from you. Maybe a sickness was going to befall you at a certain day and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moved it away from you. Subhanallah, just try to see things through a Muslim lens, through a lens of faith, of belief, of iman, and you will understand the world even more. Because nowadays people see the world through equations. 1 + 1 = 2. You see, that's it. Calculation. As if there is no God, there is no creator, there is no such thing as barakah, as blessing. Subhanallah, there is no such thing as akhirah, hereafter. They just calculate things. They only know hayat al-dunya. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They only know apparently things about this dunya, about this world. وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They are completely heedless and unaware about the hereafter, about the akhirah. So this is the best description. And what makes you, the thing that makes you really sad is that you have so many Muslims who are like that. Muslims whose name are Ahmad, Muhammad, Umar, Ali, Aisha or Fatima. They are acting like this. See, just thinking, through calculations and numbers and money, what I was supposed to do, this and there, thinking about themselves only. You see, this egocentric, selfish thinking, selfishness. Because this is the Western system. It's based upon individual selfishness. You only care about yourself, your personal interest, your personal growth. You don't care about people who are dying in Southeast Asia or in Africa, in Somalia, in Congo. If you have heard, in the recent 2 days, 3 days in Congo, people have been massacred. You see, because of political, warfare over there. In democratic Congo. Any country which is named democratic, know that it is a despotic regime. Subhanallah, oppressive, despotic. They call it democratic republic, whatever. But look at what's happening in the world. And people are completely careless as if nothing is happening. So we should be always aware that we are Muslims. And the Muslim is someone who cares about other human beings. Is not a person who's only caring about his own interest or his own salvation. I want to go to Jannah, only that. How can you expect to go to Jannah if you are not doing good for your brothers in humanity, for your brothers in Islam? You see, this is the circle of concern for the Muslim is really wide. We should care about all people. Just think about them. Subhanallah, and just by thinking, you will see things happening. You would never imagine that. Personally, I'll be thinking about someone's guidance, and I have the chance later on to meet him or to talk to him. And subhanAllah, later on he'll be guided. I will be thinking about how to solve someone's problem, and then receive the phone call from someone who can help that person. So just have this fikr, thinking about people, asking Allah subhanahu to help you in order to be capable of helping other people and benefiting them. Of course, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fi sabilillah, without getting anything, without getting praise from them, without applauding to you, without having your name in the newspaper. You're just doing this, subhanAllah, in order to get the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also told us about the change of names. He said that towards the end of time, things are going to be called in different names. تسمى الأشياء بغير أسمائها. And this is how we have seen usury or riba is called now faida and interest. Interest, as if it is interesting, as if it is something good. Subhanallah. Now, how can we describe riba or usury? It's like a huge, slimy monster that engulfs us everywhere. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, towards the end of time, all human beings will eat from riba. And if they don't purposefully eat from it, they will have some of it dust reaching them. So we are all going to be affected by riba, either by dealing in riba directly, or by being affected by the dust of riba, meaning that if you're dealing, let's say, with a company, you'll get money which is from riba. If you are, for example, let's say, having a transaction, there will be some riba in it. If you are, let's say, subhanallah, buying some products, you buy some products which have been dealt with through riba. Alaykum salam. So this is the way they were told. Prophet Muhammad said that towards the end of time, all people will be either dealing with riba, or they will be affected by, or covered by some of the dust coming from riba. You see? So it's inevitable, it's unavoidable, but at least we shouldn't be from the first type of people who are directly dealing with riba. So, riba is worse than all the harams you can think of. I mean, at first I couldn't imagine it because I didn't grasp it, I didn't understand it when I was starting to understand or study Islam. How could riba, which is just an increase in the amount of the payback of the personal loan or something like that, how could it be worse than zina, adultery or fornication? How could it be worse than drinking alcohol? How could it be worse than stealing or subhanallah, or killing? Because we will see the hadith now how it describes riba, but it remains external and can be simply, and all the other harams are only external and they can be easily ended. If someone says drinking, he can drop that drinking habit. Even non-Muslims, even kuffar, say, well, I want to stop drinking, maybe for health issues. I can stop it now. It was my last drink. Okay, and then he will not go into it again. But riba has a long-lasting effect, and it engulfs all people. It surrounds all of them, from the smallest construction worker or janitor to the biggest company owner or CEO. Now, it is almost impossible to disengage from the financial system. This is a fact. It's almost impossible, but it's not impossible. There must be, of course, an effort to escape or to get away, to have an exit from this financial system. Now, of course, we have to refer to the Quran, our main reference on the verse of riba. Now, there are strong verses from Surah Al-Baqarah, starting from verse 275. I'll read the English translation. Those who devour usury, those who eat much usury, will not stand except as stands one whom the devil by his touch has driven to madness. So those who are basing or devouring usury, if they stand up in this life, they stand up as if the devil has been touching them, subhanallah, and they were driven to madness. What kind of madness are we talking about? The madness of greed. I want more money. increase the interest rate, give loans to people who cannot even pay the loans. Credit cards, have you seen? I think each one of us maybe has. Alhamdulillah, I don't have. I have a debit card from the Dubai Islamic. But many people have more than 10 credit cards. This is really madness. Subhanallah. And you have some people who now are drowning in their debts because they couldn't pay back for their credit cards. They would give credit cards to people who are earning wages as little as 500 dirhams per month. Just take it, and pay. Have compound loans over your shoulders, and then something bad happens, we can take care of it. So this is greed, the madness of greed. Let us carry on in verse 175. That is because they say, trade is like usury. Trade is like usury. إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَى. This is what they say. It's like trade. I'm lending them money, and because I'm lending this money for them, I'm taking just some increase in money, some extra money, because I'm lending them for over a period of time. But this is also, doesn't make sense at all, because that person is in need. If he wasn't in need, he wouldn't have taken a loan. Why do you want to overcharge him? And you are a rich person. You have a lot of capital, you have a lot of money, and you don't need that increase. But this is greed. But Allah has permitted trade and forbidden usury. Those who after receiving direction from their Lord, meaning this prohibition of usury, if they stop eating usury or dealing with usury, they shall be pardoned and forgiven for the past. Their case is for God to judge. But those who repeat the offense of dealing with riba or usury are companions of the fire, they will abide therein. Because usury is much injustice. God will deprive usury of all blessings, but will give increase. For he loves not the creatures ungrateful and wicked. This is verse 276. We go to verse 278 from Surah Al-Baqarah again. All you who believe, fear God, and give up what remains of your demand for usury, if you are indeed believers. Let's say you have a bank account. Let's say it's 20,000 dirhams, 30,000 dirhams. It was your initial capital. Withdraw this capital and leave the usury behind. Don't take it. This money doesn't have any blessing. Of course, I know some scholars said that you can pay it for taxes, pay it for the poor, give it here and there. But I personally, I'm with the scholars who say that you cannot even take it, because this money has been cursed. And if you give something for charity, you should give something pure, clean money. Alright? But this money is cursed. Take only, and the verse is very clear. You see, if you do it not, take notice of war from God and His apostle. So, subhanAllah, but if you turn back, you shall have your capital sums. As I told you, have the initial capital that you have put in the bank. Do not take the interest, do not take the usury. You shall have your capital sums. Deal not unjustly, and you shall not be dealt with unjustly. لا تظلمون شيئا ولا تظلمون. So it's very clear. It's very clear. Now let's go to the hadith. I have 3 hadiths mainly. Some of them are shocking. The first one dirham of riba, and dirham at the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a silver coin. Because dinar was a golden coin and dirham was a silver coin. 1 dirham of riba is equal to 36 acts of fornication or adultery, zina. Alright? 1 dirham of riba is equal to 36 acts of zina. Imagine, 1 act of zina cannot be even imaginable by a pure believer who has taqwa in his heart. Cannot even imagine it. Alhamdulillah, a believer can reach a state in which he will be hating to at least think about haram. Thinking about haram will become something that he hates a lot. How would it be if he would be doing that haram? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those people who hate even thinking about haram. We should reach that stage. We should be working on reaching that stage. So imagine how horrible the 1 dirham of riba is. And this was narrated by Imam al-Bayhaqi. Next hadith narrated by Imam al-Hakim. The least form of riba is similar to, and please for sensitive viewers, you can close your ears. The least form of riba is similar to one committing adultery with his own mother. Imagine. It's a hadith by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine how, abominable is riba. The last hadith for this amount of hadith talking about riba, narrated by Imam At-Tabarani, if riba and fornication and adultery would prevail in a town, a punishment from Allah will soon befall it. These two things, riba and zina, you see, dealing with interest and acts of fornication and adultery. If they would, subhanAllah, be prevailing in a town, a punishment from Allah will soon befall it. Look at the Western civilization. I don't want to tell you, look at what's happening in our country, because it's really sad. I mean, in the Muslim world, even in the Arab or Muslim world, these things have become prevalent. And people nowadays are daring to speak on subhanAllah, on satellite channels, why not having extramarital relations? What's wrong with that? Why do you want to be so rigid, so narrow-minded? You see, mutazammit, this is really bad, this is really, really wrong. Why do you want to be like this? You should have freedom of relations between man and woman, outside marriage. Look at the West, they are prospering. They are so blinded, subhanAllah, they think that the West is prospering because of that. Look at what's happening to them. Now they are suffering because of their sin. Now they are suffering because of their sin. Or because of the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the main problem, ideologically and cognitively, is that we have been all struck by the West. Alright? We will always see the West as something great, as something that we have to emulate or follow their footsteps. In everything, in all of our models in life. We saw them launching rockets to the moon, and at the same time we saw them having their women almost naked. So we thought that we have to get our women naked to launch the rockets to the moon. Look how stupid we are. You see? We thought that all this technology that they brought, into existence is because they have this, subhanAllah, these relations, extramarital relations, and their drinking of alcohol. So we said, well, let's also take the whole package. In order to be technologically advanced, we have to be like them. We should have extramarital relations. We should drink alcohol. We should, have these dance clubs and etc. We should emulate them. And unfortunately, we have taken the worst things from the West, and we have left the best things. The best things, we are only buying them. We are consumers. We are not producing technology. We are not producing advanced industry. We are just consuming it. But the recent hairstyles, dressing styles, songs, movies, whatever, bad habits, ill manners. Now look at the young generation following, the Western model of, being impolite to their teachers, to their parents, to the elderly. We have been following this, unfortunately, and it has become prevalent in our society. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from all these things. We don't want to see our children following the footsteps of the kuffar. Now, riba, or interest, or dealing with riba, or usury, it has been propagated like Darwin's evolution theory. You know Darwin's evolution theory? Which says that, the species were struggling to survive, and the fittest among these species survived, and these species were evolving from lower animals to now we have human beings. We have the bacteria, then the fish, then the reptiles, then the mammals, and the best of the mammals coming straight from apes are human beings. And this theory is completely fallacious. It is completely wrong scientifically. And if you have noticed, the Westerners who believe in this theory, they have this illusion of superiority because they believe, that they are far more evolved than, let's say, Africans or Aborigines or people who are living in the Indian subcontinent or in the Far East. They see that because they are fair-skinned, they are not maybe as hairy as we are, subhanAllah, and because, they have far more advanced technological means, they think that makes them more evolved than us. Look at what the Europeans did in South Africa. Just because these people living there, they were living what they call as a primitive life, but they were exploited, their natural resources, especially gold and all other natural resources, were taken from them. All right, and look also at Australia. How were the Aborigines treated? As inferior creatures. It is only recently that the Aborigines have been given equal rights. But still up till now, in the Western mind in general, I'm not saying that all the Western people are evil or all the Western people are racist, but in general, they would tend to look at them as inferior creatures. But they are human beings like us. The Aborigines, African people, they have the same chromosomes. If you send any African child maybe to Harvard or to Oxford, maybe he will be among the geniuses of the world if he had the qualifications for that. So they are not, less or lower on the evolution scale. I don't know if you have seen this in the movies, in the books, in the curriculum, while dealing with Westerners, but they have this in their minds. We are far more evolved than you, so we have the right to dominate you. It's the survival of the fittest. We are higher than you on the evolution scale. So we have the right to take over your land, your resources. We have the right to colonize you for decades, maybe forever. Even though the colonists withdrew from our countries, all of our countries were colonized. My country was colonized by France. Other countries were mostly by Britain, by Italy, etc. So even though they withdrew, but they still have the control. They still have their privileges and they have the grip over our economy. And subhanAllah, so this is the source of the illusion of superiority. And just to go briefly about the Darwin's evolution theory, ask 3 questions for a hardcore Darwinist. He cannot answer them scientifically. First, how did life come from matter? We have inanimate matter. How did the first bacteria come into existence? Which is completely impossible from a scientific, perspective. Because life cannot come from inanimate matter. No matter how far or how complicated would these, chemical reactions would be, but life cannot come from matter. It needs and it requires a creator, an originator, who would bring it into existence under this magnificent design. And that creator is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who would bring يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي. He is the one who created life out of nothing. And life is so sophisticated in design. Look at the human cell. The human cell is a city on its own. With all the nucleus, the DNA, the information on the DNA is equal to thousands of encyclopedias. Thousands put together, the information on the human DNA alone. Who gave this information? Who had put this information? Who had made this design? The second thing is, what is the process in which the species evolved from one species to another? How did the fish develop their first arms or legs? Did they decide, now I have to go to the land, so I will start growing some feet and some arms. And I came to the land. And now I have to, develop a new breathing system, some lungs instead of the bronchioles and all these things. So, who brought that? They will say, well, it is, mutation. Alright? Mutation, or whatever they would call it. But there is not a single beneficent mutation. Mutations are distortions in the DNA built-up. Our DNA built-up is, it contains our design, how our nose should be, how our arms should be, our brain, etc. So anything, if we have been exposed to radiation, this is why pregnant women cannot do X-rays or should not be exposed to radiation. All right? If we have been exposed to radiation, our DNA structure will be distorted, and this is mutation. Look, for example, now in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Up till now, after more than 50 years from that bomb dropped by the terrorist Americans, because this is terrorism, they bombed 2 civilian cities. And they killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. And they call us terrorists. SubhanAllah. Blaming us instead of, and they didn't even apologize for that. They are justifying their big crime. SubhanAllah. Up till now, newborns in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan are born with mutations. An extra arm, an extra ear, without hair, etc. Or brain deformation. So this is what mutation. Mutation can never be beneficial, can never be constructive, it is always destructive. And the last question you can ask a Darwinist is that, what is your evidence, your fossil evidence? You know, the fossils, the bones that are left from ancient species. They have not a single bone that proves that there is a transitory creature between man and ape, between fish and reptiles, between microbes or bacteria and fish, etc. They have not a single bone. All the fossils that were found up till now, they have proven that all the creatures we have seen are still the same for hundreds of thousands of years. If you want to verify this, go to harunyahya.com, HARUNYAHYA.com. It's found in many languages. They have the Atlas of Creation. And if you go now, I'm making some advertisement, if you go now to the book exhibition in Sharjah, and Ta'awun Road, and there in the big expo, you will find also Harun Yahya, this big Turkish institution. They have their own museum. If you can take your children, you can go there. They have all the fossils of animals that existed since about millions of years even. They are still the same scorpion, the same fish, the same turtle, without any changes, without any mutation. So this is just, of course, we have to know about Darwin's evolution theory and how fallacious it is, and how unscientific it is. But the curriculums, the international system, want to maintain it so people would not believe in God. We don't need to believe in a creator. Species evolved on their own, which is utterly nonsense, scientifically speaking. So we need to inoculate our minds from these theories, and this theory is the fuel for the superiority of the West, as I'm telling you. Usually, maybe you can see this in their eyes. When you meet a European person, in general, I'm not talking about all of them, there are so many good Europeans, or maybe even American, he will look down at you if you are coming from the Middle East, or from the Far East, or from any place in the East. Because he will see, or even from Africa, he will see that he is far more evolved than you. And sometimes if you show some language skills, some thinking skills, he'll be like, wow, you people can think like us? I've seen this, through having interaction and through contacting people from that part of the world. I have seen this, and I was like, of course we can. We are human beings. We have the same chromosomes. I mean, there's no difference. We are not still apes and waiting to evolve about 100,000 years later. No, we are humans like you, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the difference in our colors, in our looks, in our subhanallah, in our ethnic background as a test for us. It's a test. A beautiful person has been created beautiful as a test for him. If he will see himself as superior to those who are not good looking, he failed the test. If he will see that he is superior over others just because he has good looks, he failed the test. If a nation with better looks in general will be superior over other nations because they see them as darker skinned or whatever, they have failed the test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made for them. Because if you want to pass the test, passing the test means that you should see all human beings as equally human. They have the equal dignity. And these superficial looks do not matter. It's what's in your heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us in a Sahih hadith that on Judgment Day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look into our looks and our shapes. He looks into our hearts, our intentions, our deeds, our faith. SubhanAllah. This is what matters the most. This superficial looks doesn't matter at all. It's all superficial. It's all being a test for us. SubhanAllah. Now, of course, I went a bit off subject, but these are important comments so we might understand the build-up of the minds of the people who are controlling the world, our world today. Now, to go briefly into how did this financial crisis start? Very basically and very easily said that banks were giving loans and they were expecting that the loans would be paid back. Now, because of their greed, they did some deregulation. What do they mean by deregulation? Of course, there are some regulations for you to take loan. You should give them how much are you earning, what's your salary, and what are the properties that you have, so they can maybe take them over and put them into mortgage, etc. And then, because they want to reduce the risks of paying back the loans. Now the deregulation means that they moved all these conditions. Why? Because they want to get a greater revenue. Instead of giving loans to 10 people and getting, let's say, 400,000 dirhams from them as interest, let's give loans to 1 million persons. Even if they were only construction workers, they cannot pay back. We can do something, we can sue them, we can put them to prison, we can get the money back again through the, insuring our capital, our finance. So this is what's called toxic debt, which means a debt that is given to someone who cannot pay it back, or maybe it will be almost impossible for him to pay it back. And then this led to collapsing confidence between banks and us banks. And also one more thing. Some of the banks were selling their loans to other banks. Let's say an American guy took a loan from an American bank, so this American bank maybe sold this loan to an Italian bank. What do you mean by selling the loan? This sounds crazy. Alright? Let's say, for example, I gave a loan to this brother, they want 10,000 dirhams. And then I go to another brother and say, listen, I want 10,000 dirhams from that guy. Alright? You want to buy this loan, meaning that he will pay you back? And then you say, fine, I'll take it because there's interest, alright? You'll be gaining from that loan. That there's a 5% or 10% he'll be getting. And also I'll be benefiting by selling this loan, I'll be getting some money. And then this bank will be selling to another bank. And then the loan will be multiplying and increasing, and the poor guy cannot pay back this money. So imagine how greedy, and this is greed-based confidence. And what they call confidence is equal and equivalent to greed. And this is, what they call restoring market confidence, restoring greed-based confidence. Now, examine the whole situation, the entire situation of the world economy. They have based their economy on disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man-made system, capitalism. If we examine in the light of this verse from Surah Al-Ankabut, chapter number 29, verse number 41, let's look at this beautiful verse. The parable of those who take protectors other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that of the spider who builds it to itself a house. But truly the flimsiest and the weakest of houses is that of the spider's house. If they knew, if they only know. So they have made this system which seems to be bright and beautiful and strong, but it is flimsiest and weakest than the spider house. And now we are observing how that it's collapsing and everyone is in panic, and in great panic. Now, I'll just want to give a brief history. I don't want to go deep into history. I think we don't have enough time. But I'll give you some history about how unethical their system is, capitalism is. Of course, our system, as we believe, Islamic system, is a highly ethical system. What do we mean by ethical? Ethics is, the set of laws which determines right and wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala determines right and wrong for us in the Quran and in the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But their system is unethical because it is based upon deceiving people and taking advantage of them. Now the word of business is called the word of what? Of sharks, of wolves, devouring one another. The big fish will eat the smaller fish. If we go back to the Battle of Waterloo, you know the Battle of Waterloo? Between Napoleon and the British, right? They were fighting in Waterloo, in Belgium. Now, there was a Jewish guy called Rothschild, and this guy was a wicked guy, very highly wicked guy. He had a very fast communication system, meaning he had people in the battlefield who can send him a message very quickly, because there was no telephone, there was no SMS or email at that time. They would send them over the horses, and then they would deliver the message to him. He wanted to get the message to know who was winning the battle. Now we know that Napoleon lost the battle, but when he received the message, he was relying that he has the fastest communication system at that time. When he received the message that Napoleon was winning, was losing, or he had lost the war, he instantly spread the news. Of course, they control communication, they control the media, they control finance. Who? The Jews. Subhanallah. And since that time in Britain, that was the case. So he was spreading this rumor that Napoleon won. So what happened to the stocks? Because they were corporations, they were stocks. Stocks were dropping down, and Rothschild bought all the stocks. Now, when the real news reached, England, that no, we won, it's not Napoleon. Now people wanted to buy their stocks back. And Rothschild said, well, okay, you want to buy back your stocks? You have to pay double or triple. So imagine how wicked their system is and how unethical. And on and on. Briefly, I personally lean into the opinion which says that the stock market is a business of gambling. If you want to conduct business in Islam, you should give an effort. You should have a say in it. You put your capital, you don't only put your capital and sit down and watch the arrows go up, go down, assume, alright? Up, down, Nasdaq, Ta'mir, I don't know what. You should have a say, you should give an effort. But this is the human laziness which promotes the idea of investing in stocks. And look now at what the people, have you seen on the news, in the newspapers, on the internet, what happened psychologically to those people who had their money in the stocks? These pictures of people like this, people like this, people covering their faces, people who committed suicide because they have put their hearts in the stock market. Subhanallah. And my scholar, the scholar that I studied with, Sheikh Sarih is his name, he's now about 87 years old. In his books, he was into forbidding or prohibiting the stock market or this kind of business. Firstly, when I was talking to him, I was leaning more into those scholars who said it is allowed as long as the business is decent and clean, etc. But he explained it to me, and now it's like, you see what happened? Told you. It was in my books, in my teachings, and there are other scholars also who have prohibited it. But now some of the scholars became de facto scholars. They would see something prevalent, and they would try to justify it and make it legal and allowable. Now, subhanallah, I'll give a small story about the stock market. In India, there was one man who wanted to buy monkeys, and people can catch them from the forest easily, and in one of the towns next to a forest. So he said, I'll buy your monkeys, $10 each. And people were getting these monkeys and selling them to that person for $10. And then he saw that people are not selling much as before. So in order to increase their efforts of seeking for monkeys, he said, I'll pay $20 for a monkey. And then people were trying to seek more monkeys and catch more monkeys and sell it to them for $20. And then he increased the price so he would have all the monkeys. So what he did is that he left the town and he left, his deputy or his assistant was there. And he told the people, you want monkeys, you can buy them from me for $50. And then when the owner comes back, the owner of the Monkey Enterprise Incorporated, you see, when he buys them from you, he will buy them from you for a higher value. He can buy them from you for 60 or 70. So they bought these monkeys back for $50, although they sold them for 10 and 20 and 30. And then that guy, the owner of Monkey Enterprise Incorporated, didn't show up. So what was left in the city are bankrupt people and monkeys. So this is a small story. The Arabic version is about donkeys because, I received both in the Arabic and the English version. Subhanallah. Now, the conclusion, what is the Islamic solution? Number one, abolition of riba. Prohibiting riba. Interest rate 0. Base your loans on qard hasan. People who want loans, give them qard hasan. Don't supercharge them, don't take anything extra from them. And if you want to go into a business, make it murabaha or mudaraba. And of course, some banks are doing that. Some Islamic banks, although there are some problems, of course, but I will see Islamic banks as a better alternative than the non-Islamic banks or ribawi banks. Also, it's not only abolishing riba, re-establish the zakat system. Now, the problem is that the zakat, what would riba do? Riba would increase the gap between the rich and the poor, right? Now, if you abolish riba, that will be a good start. And if you establish zakat, you'll be bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. Of course, there will be always rich and poor people, but at least you'll be providing poor people with their basic needs. Alright? Their basic living, their basic earning, you see, the food, the shelter, the housing, education, medical care. They will be getting that if you gather zakat and distribute it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded. For the poor, for the orphan, for those who cannot pay their loans, etc. They cannot pay their debts, etc. So, also we should make only genuine halal business. Not these new innovations, as I told you, by selling loans and, doing all these things. And also we should have solid markets, meaning buying, you cannot buy fish in the sea. I can tell you now, well, I want to sell you 10,000 kilograms of sardine in the Indian Ocean. Some people say, okay, deal, I'll pay you. But where is the fish? It's still in the sea. It's not acceptable Islamically. Islamically, I go fishing, I go on a fishing trip in the Indian Ocean, etc. I bring the 10,000 kilos and then I can sell them. I cannot sell fish in the sea. And many companies are doing this. They are selling fish in the sea. And we have seen so much trickery happening because of that. And of course, this is the primary solution, as I told you, abolishing riba, establishing zakat. Zakat isn't something voluntary, it's an obligatory farida. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, after the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some Arab tribes said, the Prophet is dead, we don't have to pay zakat. What did Abu Bakr say? Did he leave them? No. He waged a war against them because this zakat is for whom? Is it for Abu Bakr and the companions so they can enjoy it, buy the latest model of the camels and buy luxurious houses? No, it's for the poor. So those people who are not paying their zakat, they are depriving the poor from their money. So this is why he waged war against them. It's called Hurub al-Ridda, wars of apostasy. So this is how important zakat is obligatory. We should, the least thing we can do after this small presentation, small lecture, is that each one of us can spread the message and, call people for this, inshallah. Now there's a Christian writer, her name is Anne Pettifor. She said last week, I define usury as the exalting of money values over human and environmental values. So money, don't disregard humanitarian values and environmental values. Money is what matters the most. Of creating money at no cost. He's doing nothing, he's just lending his money. No effort, no enterprise, no trading, no business. Just lending his money. Without any effort, he's gaining extra money. Of creating money at no cost and lending at rates of interest intended to accumulate reserves of unearned income. Do you think that there's money in the banks? There's no money in the banks. Their incomes are unearned because they are relying on people to pay back their loans, with interest. And this is all imaginary money. You see, they lent to 100,000 persons. Oh yeah, that will get me 10% of interest, and that will mean 10 million dirhams, but maybe they will not get these 10 million dirhams. So it's imaginary money. Subhanallah. So it's about reaping that which one did not sow. Reaping what he did not sow. Briefly, I want to say also that the Bible also agrees. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Jews in Surah An-Nisa that they are taking riba, although it was prohibited in their books. So it's like scandalizing the Jews that in their books it is prohibited. I'll just read for you one passage from the Old Testament, which is also valid for the Hebrews and the Christians. In the book of Exodus, chapter 22, verse 25, it is said that if you lend money to any of my people, it is alleged that God is saying this, if you lend money to any of my people that is poor by you, you shall not be to them as a usurer, neither shall you lay upon him usury. Alright? So also here, take not usury of him. This is in the book of Leviticus, which is one of the books of the Old Testament, chapter 25, verse 35 to 37. Take no usury of others, or increase, but fear your God, that your brother might live with you. You shall not give him your money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals for increase. So it is completely prohibited, but they allowed it just for getting money and for getting welfare. So also there's a book written by a Christian writer, it's called Usury, Destroyer of Nations by S.C. Mooney. It's one of the book, you can search it. Usury, Destroyer of Nations. You can Google it. It's available on Amazon.com. I don't know if it's available in bookstores over here. Now, of course, we said that people committed suicide because of this financial crisis. People went into depression. But people have many worries. Muslims should have only one worry. What is that worry? Is Allah pleased with us? Is Allah pleased with us? This should be our only worry. Is Allah pleased with us? If we do tawheed, we believe in only one God, we worship only God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will have only one worry. Instead of all these expanding worries. Money, my bank account, my trade, my business, my house, my car, etc. Have only this only worry. Is Allah pleased with me? هل الله راض عني? Is Allah pleased with me? Keep it in your mind. This is for myself because I need it the most, and it's for each one of us. Subhanallah. And I just want to conclude. There are many verses that inspire me to talk about this issue, but I'll just conclude with these two verses so we can inshallah pray Isha. I'm sorry, I'm still recovering from my sickness. Look at this wonderful verse. All of the Quran is wonderful, but this verse sheds light upon the crisis. In the Quran, Surah At-Tawbah, chapter number 9, verse 109. Which then is best? Which one is best? He who lays his foundation on piety to God and his good pleasure, excuse me, or he that lays his foundation on an undermined sand cliff, ready to crumble to pieces. So you have two kinds of people. People who establish their affairs on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and people who establish their affairs on, subhanAllah, undermined sand cliff, meaning pleasing other than God, just their own welfare. And it does crumble to pieces with him into the fire of hell. And God guides not people to that do wrong. The last verse, I'll conclude with this. Whosoever follows the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is in chapter number 2, verse 38. Whosoever follows my guidance, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. They will not enter this depression or post-traumatic stress disorder because of this financial crisis, because they are going the right way. They are not doing haram businesses. They are not dealing with usury, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from this crisis. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who would save the world from this crisis by establishing the Islamic financial system, inshallah. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. I'll give a small link. Go to islamonline.net. There's a link on the financial or economic crisis. They have a lot of fatawa, a lot of articles. islamonline.net. Inshallah, you will find scholarly, articles and arguments about this affair, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. I'm sorry to take so much of your time because it's a long issue. It's a long story, and of course we should have our say about it. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to be among the saviors of the world, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Do we have time for questions after Isha, inshallah? So, inshallah, questions and answers after Isha prayer. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.